Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are grabbing a serious shortcut into the incredibly complex world of natural skincare formulation.
hmm
That precise high-stakes intersection where green chemistry, global regulation, and some very demanding consumer desires all collide.
They really do.
So if you are aiming to launch a clean label product, or you just need to understand how a brand moves from a great concept to a safe, sustainable product on the shelf, this deep dive is definitely for you.
Our sources today, they're straight for the trenches. These are the documents, the technical papers used by professionals, the formulators, the brand.
The people actually doing the work.
Exactly. The manufacturers who need to innovate and move fast, but, and this is key, without ever compromising on quality or consumer safety.
And that's the rub, isn't it? Moving fast while staying safe and clean.
It is. So our mission here is to distill the absolutely essential nuggets of knowledge. We need to understand ingredient sourcing, the massive stability challenges with natural materials.
These are huge.
Huge. And the complex compliance needs for private label positioning, all against this backdrop of the clean label and sustainability obsession.
Okay, let's unpack this, starting with the market forces. Because the first step in formulating is knowing precisely what the consumer wallet is chasing right now.
Well, the landscape hasn't just changed. I'd say it's fundamentally shifted. The clean beauty movement is, it's far past being a trend.
It's the baseline now.
It's the baseline. It's
Yes.
driving demand for granular transparency and, what's even harder, regenerative supply chains. People are scrutinizing ingredients not just for what's not in them,
Right, not just free from.
but for the ethical and environmental footprint of what is in them.
And one of the most fascinating ways that shows up is this sudden surge in upcycled ingredients. We're talking about extracts from fruit pulp, rescued seed oils.
Coffee grounds, things like that, materials that were otherwise just headed for the waste stream.
Exactly.
It's a brilliant business move, actually. It solves two problems at once.
How so?
First, these byproducts, they often contain surprisingly high concentrations of functional actives. And second, they serve as this indisputable, visible statement about a brand's commitment to sustainability.
But I imagine sourcing an upcycled extract introduces enormous variability, right, compared to a standard raw material. How do you maintain quality?
Oh, that's the challenge. The sources are really clear on this. You need complete documentation on the waste material itself, how it was collected, processed, preserved.
Before you even get to the extraction.
Before you even start. Variability is high, so quality control, which we'll get into, becomes, well, non-negotiable.
Okay, so when we look at the actives that are consistently topping the ingredient wish lists, what's the through line? What connects them?
They all focus on resilience and support. We're seeing sustained popularity for high-performance naturals like bakuchiol, ceramides, niacinamide.
The big names.
Right. And their common feature is that they actively address skin barrier support and microbiome balance. They deliver efficacy without the irritation you sometimes got with older, heavy synthetic ingredient decks.
But we have to talk about the term that dictates all of this, natural. It's just an incredibly slippery term in the industry.
It certainly is. The industry definition really hinges on two things: origin and processing.
Okay.
Natural ingredients are defined by their origin, so they have to come from plant, mineral, or marine sources.
And the processing part is key, right? You can't just take a natural oil and chemically modify it beyond recognition and still call it natural.
Exactly. The processing has to preserve the inherent properties of the raw material. But the real confidence booster for the consumer and for regulators is verification.
The proof.
The proof. When a brand makes a naturally derived claim, they must have the technical documentation, the supplier certificates of analysis COAs, and ideally independent testing to back it all up.
It's not just a marketing claim.
No. We're seeing consumer expectations demanding full seed-to-bottle traceability, especially for sensitive ingredients like specialized oils.
That deep level of traceability immediately brings up regulation. It feels like the biggest time and cost headache for brands trying to move quickly.
It is the backbone. You can't bypass it. While the requirements do vary globally, the core regulatory principles are, universal and non-negotiable.
Things like safety assessments.
Rigorous safety assessments, accurate INCI labeling, that's the International Nomenclature of Cosmetic Ingredients.
The official name for everything.
Yes. And clear allergen disclosures. Safety is always the first hurdle.
Let's break down those regional friction points, because for a brand looking at global distribution, this is where things can just grind to a halt.
Okay, so start with the EU and the UK. They operate under a strong precautionary principle. There's an intense emphasis on robust pre-market safety assessments. The safety bar is it's high.
And they're really strict on allergens, especially in fragrances.
Very strict. Which means your formulator needs to know exactly what's in every single drop of that fragrance oil down to the last molecule, long before you fill the first bottle.
Wow.
Now, if you look at the U.S., the FDA requires cosmetic labeling to be truthful and not misleading. And while U.S. regulation has historically been a bit less prescriptive on ingredients compared to the EU, they have zero tolerance for making false therapeutic claims or skipping basic safety substantiation. The onus is entirely on the brand to prove it safe.
And then, just to make it more complicated, Canada adds mandatory bilingual labeling on top of their own country-specific rules.
Right. The point our sources make is that a private label manufacturer can't just create one label. They have to tailor the entire package and the safety dossier to the specific market it's going to.
Which leads to what you called the ultimate safety backbone, the CPSR-like risk assessment.
Yeah, the Cosmetic Product Safety Reports. This is the documented due diligence.
Hold on, I want to clarify for you, the listener.
Yeah.
A CPSR is not just a form you fill out, right? What does it actually involve?
It's a massive undertaking. The CPSR is the documented scientific proof that the product is safe for human use.
Under normal conditions.
Under normal or reasonably foreseeable conditions of use, yes. It involves toxicological risk assessments of every raw material, impurity calculations, stability testing, compatibility analysis.
It sounds expensive.
The time and monetary investment is significant. It can easily cost thousands of dollars and weeks of work per product. But it's what prevents recalls, liability, and catastrophic brand damage. It ensures you're ready from the start.
That makes perfect sense. So we've handled the paperwork. Now let's pivot to the formulation bench itself and the inevitable battle against time, shelf life.
Yes.
When formulators pick plant oils, they're choosing between, like, the purest version of the ingredient and something that will actually stay stable for 2 years.
That is the core trade-off, absolutely.
Yeah.
Consider unrefined, cold-pressed oils. They retain the highest level of micronutrients, vitamins, minerals, natural color, aroma. Fantastic for efficacy and marketing. But their high concentration of unsaturated fatty acids means they are chemically delicate. They're highly prone to oxidation and generally have a much shorter shelf life. They literally turn rancid faster.
So if you want that potent, raw rosehip oil, you accept a powerful, sometimes grassy aroma, and you just have to use it quickly.
Exactly. Conversely, you have refined oils, which have undergone mild treatments like filtration or deodorization. They offer a much lighter sensory profile and significantly greater stability.
They last longer.
They last longer and mix better in complex formulas, but at the cost of some of those really beneficial volatile components.
Our sources highlight some classics that balance this, like jojoba.
For its similarity to skin sebum, yeah.
Rosehip for its fatty acid profile. Squalane as a lightweight emollient.
Universally loved.
And shea butter for that really robust barrier support.
And every single one of them, particularly the ones rich in those unsaturated fats, they face the same twin enemies: oxidation and photodegradation.
So how do you fight that? Is there a magic bullet that stops an oil from turning rancid?
There's no magic bullet, only sophisticated mitigation. You have to build in a robust antioxidant strategy. That means adding ingredients like high-purity vitamin E tocopherol or ascorbyl palmitate.
And they sort of sacrifice themselves to protect the other ingredients?
They scavenge free radicals before they can attack the more sensitive oils. Exactly.
But just adding antioxidants isn't enough, is it? You have to protect the product physically, too.
Absolutely. You have to manage the environment both inside and outside the bottle.
Okay.
Outside, that means using opaque or amber glass packaging to block UV light. Inside, it means eliminating oxygen during the fill process, sometimes using inert gas blankets like nitrogen before capping.
And this isn't just a formulation issue, it's an operational one for the manufacturer, right?
Oh, for sure. You have to implement clear internal controls like first in, first out, or FIFO inventory practices.
You can't have old oil sitting in the back of the warehouse.
No. And the formulator needs to train the QC staff on what to look for. The silent alarms of rancidity are crucial. Subtle off odors, color shifts, a change in viscosity. Catching those early prevents a product failure 6 months later.
Here's where it gets really interesting, the battle between purity and performance. We've managed the carrier oils, but now we get to the high-performance actives. The complexity just compounds.
That is the defining challenge of working with botanicals. An extract from a plant, say, green tea can, vary wildly in its functional compounds because of the soil, the climate that year, the extraction method.
So if I buy a serum today and it works, and I buy another one 6 months later, how does the brand make sure I get the same results if the raw material has changed?
The industry answer is standardization.
Okay.
Standardization is the process of testing the extract and ensuring that the final material delivered to the formulator contains a consistent, measurable level of the key functional marker compounds. Without that, you can't guarantee reproducibility, your clinical claims become meaningless.
But wait, doesn't requiring standardization aiming for uniform levels kind of remove the very natural seasonal variability that consumers sometimes want? Are we standardizing the natural out of the ingredient?
It's a tension point, for sure. Brands walk a fine line. They need to market the natural origin, but they have to rely on rigorous standardization to provide proven, measurable performance.
So it's a pragmatic compromise.
It is. If you want a product to reliably reduce fine lines, you need the active ingredient concentration to be consistent, period.
Let's talk about some of these actives. Bakuchiol, for instance. It's fully emerged as the leading nature-aligned alternative to retinol.
It's impressive. It signals similar anti-aging pathways, collagen support, cellular turnover, but typically with far superior tolerability. It avoids the irritation and photosensitivity you often get with retinoids.
And niacinamide vitamin B3, that seems to be a reliable workhorse that's in everything now.
It's a staple because it's so multifunctional. It supports the barrier, acts as an antioxidant, helps with pigmentation. A real all-rounder.
And what's on the horizon?
We're seeing increasing excitement over targeted peptides, plant-derived stem extracts, and of course the rapidly growing field of probiotics and postbiotics for the skin microbiome.
To handle these high-stakes ingredients, you need a bulletproof quality control framework. What are the key stages?
It starts long before the ingredients even hit your facility. First is sourcing reliability. That's supplier audits verifying those COAs we mentioned and ensuring crystal clear documentation of extraction methods.
Including any solvents they use.
Exactly. You need to know your botanical wasn't extracted using something you can't have in your final product.
That seems like a huge logistical burden.
It is. Then comes the batch testing. Every single incoming batch must be verified for identity. Is this actually rosehip oil? Potency, microbial safety, and screened for contaminants like heavy metals or pesticides.
It's the only way.
It's the only way to build credible labeling and ensure consistency across large private label runs.
Moving into the actual structure of the product, let's talk mechanics, emulsions. This dictates how the product feels, how it delivers actives.
And ultimately, how happy the consumer is. Yeah. Emulsion science is foundational. We distinguish primarily by the continuous phase.
Oil and water, water and oil.
Right. Oil and water, or OW. Emulsions are the lighter, more popular creams and lotions. Water is the external phase, so they feel refreshing, absorb quickly.
They disappear into the skin.
Precisely. Conversely, water in oil, WO, emulsions are where oil forms the external phase. They feel much richer, more occlusive, and provide greater barrier support.
Better for very dry skin.
Ideal for very dry or compromised skin, but they feel heavier and can be tricky to preserve.
And the emulsifiers, the glue, have to fit the natural brief, too. We're looking at things like lecithin or glyceryl stearate.
Yes, but the key is compatibility. You have to validate that your chosen natural emulsifier works effectively not just to blend the phases, but also to maintain stability with your actives and, critically, the final pH of the product.
Let's dedicate a moment to pH because that simple metric feels disproportionately important.
It is utterly critical. pH profoundly affects three things: skin health, preservative efficacy, and ingredient stability.
And if it's wrong,
If your pH is too high or too low, you disrupt the natural skin microbiota, you can render some actives inert, and you drastically reduce the effectiveness of your preservation system.
and if your preservation system fails because the pH is wrong, what happens?
You risk microbial growth bacteria, mold, yeast. That's an immediate safety concern and requires a rapid product recall.
So what's the safe zone for most skincare?
Most stable cosmetic emulsions and formulations designed to support the skin barrier reside in the 4.5 to 6.5 range. A robust, well-controlled pH strategy is the #1 proactive way to reduce microbial risk.
This brings us back to that central tension, the synthetic question. Natural ingredients satisfy consumer demand but introduce these huge stability and sensory challenges.
And that's where the pragmatic choice comes in. Synthetics often offer broader efficacy, stronger preservative protection, and a dramatically more predictable shelf life. The sources are clear. The most successful natural brands employ a balanced approach.
Meaning they might use a natural base, the oils, butters, extracts, but strategically introduce a well-characterized synthetic preservative where stability is non-negotiable.
Absolutely. You must formulate for safety and stability first. You can't launch a product that risks microbial contamination just to get a 100% natural marketing claim. The integrity of the product has to trump the purity of the claim.
Okay, let's walk through the whole process from that initial concept to the product hitting the consumer's hands.
The workflow is methodical. You start by defining the concept, the texture, the key claims. Then you select your actives and, crucially, your preservation system for your target markets.
You set your texture and pH targets.
And only then do you move into small batch bench formulation with absolutely meticulous documentation. Every change, every observation must be logged.
And before that final product can launch, it has to run the final gauntlet, safety testing. What are the non-negotiables?
You need 3 types of data. First, human patch testing to check for common irritations. Second, challenge tests, where you intentionally contaminate your product with bacteria and mold to prove your preservative system kills them off.
And third,
microbial stability studies to ensure the product remains safe over time.
all of which generates the necessary CPSR or equivalent documentation to keep regulators happy.
Correct. Let's ground this with a concrete example from the source material, a facial oil blend.
Perfect. A high-nutrient, low-water system using rosehip, marula, and scolane.
So because it's a low-water and hydrous formula, the preservation risk is minimized. Bacteria need water to thrive. But the trade-off is a high oxidation risk from all those unsaturated fatty acids. So the formulation focus shifts entirely to robust antioxidant stabilization, opaque packaging, and rigorous rancidity testing. The goal is a sensory-rich experience and proven barrier support while ensuring documented stability for 2 years. So what does this all mean for you, the learner? It means that building a successful natural skincare brand isn't about just mixing plants. It's about managing complexity. Successful formulation relies entirely on building consumer trust. And that trust is built on 3 pillars: absolute, verifiable safety, radical transparency about sourcing, and relentless, rigorous third-party testing.
And the truly successful formulator knows exactly when to hold firm on a natural ingredient and when to strategically bring in a safe, synthetic component to make sure the product actually works as promised. That tension is the secret sauce.
Which raises an important question for you to explore. Given the immense difficulty of standardizing botanicals and managing their batch variability, how far can the industry truly push the 100% natural marketing claim before it starts to undermine a fundamental need for safety and predictability? Especially when preservation so often relies on that strategic synthetic compromise.
It requires honesty.
With yourself and with the consumer.
A fantastic deep dive into the business of natural beauty. A clear path forward for anyone looking to launch or understand this market. Catch you on the next one.